Hi, welcome to Tattoo Homewreckers. This is Gaia. I'm here with my co-host Callista, and today we are talking about tattoo apprenticeships. It's a part 2, so if you wanted to know how to get a tattoo apprenticeship, go back and listen to the first episode. Today we're going to answer a bunch of your questions. We probably won't have time to answer all the questions, but we should get through a good little chunk. And then we're also going to talk about my personal methodology of how I teach apprenticeships, just to kind of give an idea of like a template for anyone who needs it and or any artist that's like interested in apprenticing someone.
I can testify it is a very good methodology. So
thank you.
You're welcome.
It's kind of learning on the fly. So it's like parenting. There isn't like an exact thing of like, hey, this is a perfect template. But I think that having like a general basis can help artists like do the things that you kind of take for granted, because that's the best part about having an apprentice is that you have to analyze everything you do. And we talked a little bit about that last time. And this, I think, helps with sometimes artists forget that you even need to learn how to talk to clients. So it just kind of helps with that.
Yep.
But we'll start with our first question.
Absolutely. First question that we got was, what do you think of an artist who didn't get an apprenticeship?
Okay, so let's start with, this is kind of a tricky question. It's probably going to be mildly offensive to some people. I personally think that it depends on the person, but I would essentially counter with another question. And what do you think about a doctor that doesn't go to med school? Like,
I mean, there's so many people that like would like to justify it and go around it, because some of the greats have come from not having an apprenticeship, but that was way back when. And most of the big names in our industry now, I feel like, have done an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's important. I'm just going to answer that question with, listen, I think it's important to have an apprenticeship. I wouldn't say I would suggest it. I would say you need it, honestly.
Yeah. And I understand that there are different levels of apprenticeships. So there are shops that are just cranking out apprentices and do not teach to what I believe is even a basic standard. But then it's the same thing with school, is that there are schools that do not teach to a high standard, but I think that having some sort of formal apprenticeship helps you. At the very least, it helps you like learn how to not do things if you didn't like the way your mentor did stuff. But I think that like personally, I'm not a fan of a self-taught artist. I think occasionally it does work out that someone can be introspective enough that they are able to do a great job and become great artists. But also, that being said, very few people without apprenticeships don't fuck up people for a long time first. And usually if you talk to that individual, they talk about going into shops and then learning in shops, which means they just got an informal apprenticeship because they just learned from all their peers. So it would be the same thing, but faster if they got an actual apprenticeship.
Yes. And I kind of want to tackle onto that because there is this huge thing in the like internet right now about people who are being accused of gatekeeping tattooing because it's like an actual thing. I have very strong, I have very strong feelings about it. It is a public safety problem. We're not gatekeeping tattooing by saying stop tattooing yourself and stop tattooing your friends. It's a public safety like hazard to do that. So like
I just don't understand. Sorry, I interjected. I don't understand how it is any different than any other medical procedure. If you said, "Hey, I'm going to go ahead and do all my dental work at home," people would be like, "What the fuck? No." But for some reason, because some asshole on the internet said, "Hey, you can buy a tattoo machine. I can also buy all the tools I need to do my own fucking teeth work."
Right.
But if I told everyone, like, I'm just going to go ahead and put a crown on, everyone would think I was fucking nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
because you have no fucking training. I do not understand it. And I also don't understand this idea of gatekeeping it because, hate to break it to you, if you can't get an apprenticeship, that's on you, bro. That's like saying I can't get into med school. Well, you weren't fucking good enough.
Yeah, it's cutthroat. This industry is fucking cutthroat. And again, we are not by any means gatekeeping. We are telling you again, just think of it from a public safety standpoint. It is incredibly dangerous to tattoo yourself and to tattoo your friends at home. Just don't. Yep. Just don't. And I don't even want to talk about the artistic standpoint. I don't fucking care. It's the fact that you are putting yourself and other people at danger.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's my
if I'm not going to do cosmetology without if I can't microblade someone's eyebrows without going to school, or having some sort of formal training, then why can I not? Why can I just be like, all right, cool, let me buy this machine off of Amazon.
Permanently, change people's bodies.
Okay, well, that leads us, I think that starts us on the next question, which is, why do I need an apprenticeship?
Ooh.
And I think for everything we just said, for learning the basis of this industry, and also, honestly, an apprenticeship sets you up for success. If you come in and you say, okay, I'm self-taught, very few shops, you better have a phenomenal portfolio for any shops to even want to talk to you. Because the moment you jump that yourself and say, no, I went ahead and bought a machine and I just did everything at home, it shows us a lack of respect for our industry. That those of us who worked really hard to get in the industry, and then those of us who are working really hard to uphold standards. And honestly, as much as tattoo artists hate to hear me say it, I'll keep saying it, we should have more regulations.
Yes, please keep saying it. We should have more just awareness of said regulations.
Yeah.
We need to do better.
Yep.
As an industry, we need to do better. And
we're one of the few industries, honestly, it's the only industry I know of, but I'm sure there are more out there that do not have any sort of continuing education.
Oh my God,
your hairstylist has to have more continuing education than we do. And what are they doing that's going to damage you to the level in which we could possibly damage you?
Absolutely.
And so that's honestly, you need an apprenticeship to set you up for success. The same reason why you need to go to at least have a base level education school. So it's, why we require a high school diploma or a GED is because we want people to have a base level of education. And it's the same thing with your apprenticeship.
Yeah, it shows that you can, you're taking this seriously. And a lot of us have fought for just the right to hold a machine. So I like the way you said it. But yeah, you need an apprenticeship because, again, trailing back to it's a public hazard. It's a public safety hazard to not be trained under someone who knows what they're doing.
Okay, speaking of education,
yes,
one of our questions was, what is your opinion on tattoo schools?
Oh, I love this question. I do love this question. I love this question because I don't know basically anything about tattoo schools. All I know is that I know in Oregon they do require you to go to school for tattooing. I am a little bit wary of them. Again, this is coming from someone who doesn't know anything about how it goes down or who's teaching what, but I am wary of them because I'm concerned that how much influence from the actual industry do these schools actually have? That's what I'm concerned about. Are we pumping out artists who don't know anything about the industry? Well,
we were, Caboose and I were perusing really fast before we did this episode and found a school. We won't mention specifics because obviously we don't, the likelihood that they would hear us talk about it, obviously very slim to none, but just to cover it legally so we can't get in trouble. But there is a school, and their whole thing is 11 weeks. Which to me is personally terrifying because I don't think you can teach anything in 11 weeks to that caliber.
Fast tracking fucking okay.
And I've only met one artist who went to a tattoo school and I would honestly have rated him as a scratcher. The quality of work he was doing and the lack of general knowledge. And he graduated from a tattoo school. So personally, unless it's an Oregon situation or it's a really good school, which I don't know of any that are, but in Oregon, they require it. So obviously you should go to a tattoo school because that's just
the requirement.
The law there, the regulations. But 11 weeks is a hair sketchy.
If any of you know someone who's gone to a tattoo school, please have them reach out to us because I would love to learn. I would love to know exactly. I'm very curious to see if they know way more on regulations than us. versus artists who like were apprenticing. Like what were the main takeaways and what were things that you missed out? I would love to know. So if any of you know. Then
we noticed on the curriculum that 1 week was dedicated to the anatomy of the skin, and that really interested me because that's something that I feel like as a whole our industry is lacking in any basic wound care or anatomy.
Wound care,
So like that's why you end up with so much misinformation is because like as a whole, our industry is lacking in education.
Yep.
So it's a lot of just blind leading the blind. So I would be interested if I had an extra $5,000 and 11 weeks to take off of work.
$5,000?
Yeah. Then I would do it purely just for like research purposes because that's fascinating.
Holy
so if anyone
shit.
wants to front me like 11 weeks worth of income and $5,000 to sponsor
Gaia, please.
Yeah,
So that way
that'd be
she
awesome.
can find out for herself and or just, message us. Let us know.
Yeah.
I want to know. But yeah, basically to make my long answer very short, I don't know enough to really have an opinion. I would like to know more.
Yeah.
I'm very wary of them, but yeah, that's my answer. What's our next question?
Let's see. So how many hours a week should I dedicate to my apprenticeship?
As many as you fucking can, dude. As many as you can. For me, it was like, it wasn't rough, but I understand a lot of apprentices, like, obviously you still need to, like, have some sort of income to pay for gas, to actually fucking show up for your apprenticeship. But me personally, I put, like, work at the back burner. I tried my best to be there. Whenever the shop was open, I was determined to be there, even if it was just for, like, a half day.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I was there for every second that I could be there. It's good for rapport. It's also good to, again, the more exposure you get in this industry, the faster you'll find out if you even want to be in this industry still, and the faster you'll learn. So yeah, as many as you can.
Yeah,
right?
I think it truly just depends. I think it's right that like it's as many as you can, because there were nights that like you were so dog tired that I had to send you home because you had gone to work at 4 a.m.
Yeah.
And then gone home, changed, and then come right to the shop. And I would be tattooing, like, my idea of late is tattooing past 7 because I'm a morning person. So if I could tattoo at 8 a.m. every day, I would. And when I was making my own hours, most of my appointments started at 8 to like 10 a.m. So
damn, dude.
when I was tattooing till like 7, she'd be there just like damn near falling asleep. I'm like, bitch, you need to go home. You are going to crash on your way. Like, please get some sleep. But I was the person that always had to tell her, as opposed to like, I've seen other people that like, I wouldn't apprentice them based on the fact that they left before me. And I think that like, that to me is the ultimate sign of disrespect, is that like, if you leave before your mentor is done tattooing, then like, fuck off. You don't really want it. That's like walking out in the middle of a teacher's lecture and then saying that you want to fucking learn.
What a good tip, because I feel like a lot of people don't understand that, that it is a sign of respect. It was very much, I was kind of lucky because I was told from the get-go, like, you should be the first person to be there and the last person to leave.
Yeah.
And dude, you sacrifice a lot of your time, a lot of your energy for that. Again, unless one of your mentors is like, okay, you need to go home, then like, yeah, absolutely take that. Never say no to that. Never say no to that. Take that opportunity to be like, all right.
She says that, but she would absolutely be like, no, I'm good. I'm like, I'm watching your eyes just close and your head nod. Like, dude, go home and get some rest.
Yeah.
And then there were certain times where I was like, look, I don't want to see you tomorrow. I need you to like recoup as a person. But that being said, like, you should be there like as much as humanly possible.
Yes, as much as you can, because it shows that you want it too.
Yeah.
One of the biggest tips that I could give anyone is, again, I think I talked about this in the first part of our apprenticeship episode, but you want to make sure that like the people in your shop give a shit about you. You want to make sure that like, even when you're dog tired and you don't want to be there, you've somehow wormed your way into everyone's hearts and people are rooting for you.
Yes.
But yeah, that's the answer. As much as you physically can.
And just to build on that a tiny bit, the more time you spend there, the quicker you get through your apprenticeship.
Yep.
So that being said, if you're only spending 5 hours a week, expect to be an apprentice for 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, right?
But if you're like devoting as much time as possible, then you will be able to learn a lot more. And that way you're able to finish in like 1 to 2 years.
Yep.
So
simple.
This next question is like really, really sweet. And it's, how do I know I'm good enough to start my apprenticeship?
Start your apprentice.
Yeah, for someone that really wants to do it, but they're not sure that, like, they're good enough yet.
Bro, just hop in.
Yeah, the way I feel about that is that, like, I will usually tell someone no first to gauge their reaction. Because, like, I'm the type of person that if you tell me no, fuck off. If I want to do something, I'm going to do it. Yeah. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, maybe I won't do it with you, but I'm going to continue. And I think that that resilience is so important, especially in our industry, because you need that resilience as a character, like, trait of you to be able to survive this industry, because it is a commercial artist. So it is a really hard industry when it comes to people just being nasty, honestly.
That's brutal.
Yeah. So I think that, like, having some of that built-in resilience.
Yeah.
But I think that, like, if you want to do it, just fucking go for it.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
Just go for it. If you spend your whole life waiting until you feel like you're good enough to do something before you do it, you're going to waste a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Just
probably your whole fucking life.
Absolutely. So just jump in. Know that, like, this is so stupid, but I saw a quote a really long time ago. A lot of my big life quotes are something to do with Beyonce. But Beyonce was told no, and she was told that she would never be a good singer, and look at her, it's motherfucking Beyonce, bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so go for it.
I love that.
Very cute question.
And then the last question we have today before we go into, like, the methodology is something that, like, I love / hate, because this question makes me really angry. So I'm going to let you go first. And it's, should I buy my own machine?
No, don't do that. You don't even know where to get them. And if it's Amazon, wrong. Fail. No, don't buy your own machine. I get it. It's so tempting and it's so sexy to be like, oh, I just want to touch a machine. Maybe I won't use it. That's bullshit. You're going to use it. Don't buy your own machine. It, again, symbol of respect in the industry. If you are able to show that you can wait to do that, a lot of people will be very attracted to that as like a, apprentice standpoint. Like, people want to see that you are patient and that you will savor that moment. And plus, if you wait, like, when you do buy your own machine, it is the most magical fucking thing. Yeah. Yeah.
And a side note, you don't even know what the fuck you're buying. So, like, don't buy that shit. So here's my thing. Buying a tattoo machine is like never, ever having a sexual experience, having never seen it, and then just going into a sex shop and being like, I'm gonna buy stuff. Bitch, you don't know what anything's for. Mm-hmm. How about learn what stuff is for before you're throwing money at it? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Like, no, dude, you don't know what you're buying.
Yeah.
And like, in my case, like, I didn't teach her coils because, like, that's outdated technology. Mm-hmm. If you've listened to previous episodes, you've heard us talk about that. I personally think it's stupid. Caboose has the best quote ever about it. And he talks about, sorry, I just touched her foot under the table.
That's okay.
And he talked about, like, why would I teach her coils? That's like teaching her to, like, ride a horse and buggy before learning how to drive a car. Right. It is outdated technology. If she wants to learn it, if she wants to go, like, old Amish style and do horse and buggy, sure, go ahead.
I'm okay.
However, if she would have bought a coil machine, I would have probably been like, I'm good, thanks. You're not my apprentice. Like, that's super, like, first off, I don't use mine anymore. They're in a glass case. Like, and ancient. Also, yeah.
Ancient technology.
I had them up on the wall in one of the previous shops I worked at. And somebody came up and were like, oh my gosh, those are, like, old.
That's cute.
They're, like, fucking 5 years old, dude.
Yeah, you're like, no, they're not that old.
Yeah, I use exclusively rotaries, so, like,
you guys don't know what you're buying. It's shit equipment, and any good, what am I trying to say, company that sells tattoo equipment always tries to verify that you're actually a tattoo artist first. So chances of you getting a good machine are so slim to none.
Yeah, you're not going to get one. That's a good one. Yeah. Because you do have to verify that you are a tattoo artist and you work in a tattoo shop.
Yeah.
And the good ones will call a tattoo shop.
Oh, and
be like, hey,
find out.
Artist, if they can't find you on the website, they'll call the shop.
Yeah, they will sniff you out.
Yeah,
so.
Because scratchers are so prevalent, which is part of that, like, do I need an apprenticeship?
Explain what a scratcher is to those who don't know.
So a scratcher, also known as a kitchen magician, or as term. I knew as a living room wizard is what I knew.
Living room wizard.
Are people who are tattooing not in a shop and or without a license. So, like, in the state of Nevada, artists are not licensed. So, like, we do not have individual licenses, but in order to tattoo and be legal, we have to operate inside of a tattoo shop. So if I were to say start tattooing at home, I would be a scratcher. That being said, I will give a caveat because everyone's always like, oh my God, that's crazy. Most tattoo artists have done the occasional tattoo when they go to like visit a friend. So like I did one in fucking Hawaii as a gift for some friends of mine as a wedding present. And I spent 3 hours disinfecting a hotel room and legit, it looked like fucking Dexter. Like when they walked in, my friend was like, dude, are we about to get murdered? Because everything has to be covered.
You said correct.
So it's not worth it. However, if someone tells you like, oh yeah, my friend's a tattoo artist and they just work out of this place, but they're actually a tattooers, they're fucking not.
Yeah.
Because we will do it on very rare occasions. I've been tattooing for 13 years and I've tattooed outside of my studio 3 times.
I think
genuinely, it's never worth it.
It's very different because like I would say if 97% of your time is spent in a shop, then like you're not a scratcher.
Yeah.
Yeah. But sorry,
but
back to your
I
point.
like to give that caveat because people will oftentimes mistake somebody having a tattoo party and being like, no, they're a tattooer. They are not a real tattoo artist.
Tattoo
That's a
party?
fucking scratcher. If this person's coming to your house to tattoo you and 20 other friends,
Ew, dude.
they're a fucking scratcher. They are not a real tattoo artist. Because if they were a real tattoo artist, they would say, hey, it is not worth my time to disinfect your entire home. And if you're working on things like carpet, it is not worth me covering everything in plastic, disinfecting said plastic, making it full on Dexter, and then tattooing you. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
So when people are operating outside of a studio, they are scratchers.
Ugh, gross. Yeah.
And as you can tell from my tone of voice, I'm very passionate about this because it pisses me the fuck off.
Dude, yeah, I know. Have some respect for the industry. Like, get it together. And again, it's not gatekeeping. Again, it's a public safety concern, you guys.
If you wouldn't let your dentist do it, if you wouldn't let your cosmetologist
get braces from your friend, then don't get a tattoo from them in their house. Like, it's very simple. Yeah.
Real simple.
God.
Okay,
goodness.
so now on to the like super nerdy part, which is my favorite part.
Hooray.
And so I'll probably do most of the talking, but hopefully Callie will like chime in here and there.
Absolutely. I gotcha.
So the way that I start my apprenticeships is like now it's a little bit different because we have the requirement at the studio that our hopeful apprentices have to work the front desk for a minimum of a year. So that way we can decide as a studio, every artist gets to chime in on like how they feel about this person.
Love it.
And then that person can also develop relationships with different artists and decide like if they want to apprentice under a specific person, if they want to be a shop apprentice. Let me give probably the definition because people probably don't know that. A shop apprentice is just someone who is learning literally from everyone.
Yep.
So every single person there or whichever artists are willing to like help them, they learn from. And it's on that individual person to have those conversations with each artist. And then an individual apprentice would be like what Callista was for myself. And that is that I was just going about my business and she psycho-stalked me. And then I one day woke up with an apprentice.
Incorrect.
So, yeah.
She made me shave her head. She said, how about do you want a tattoo? And then I shaved my head. And
she's a stalker and she shaved her head before I met her because she's obviously stalking me.
For those of you who don't know, we had the same haircut before we knew each other.
Yeah.
Just so you know. But
now it's on record now. So I will fucking save this clip on my phone.
And play it whenever I tell strangers that because it's my favorite thing to say.
It is.
Yeah. So basically I had a mom and that was my tattoo mom.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like parenting.
Yeah, but you can be adopted by a whole family.
Yep.
And that would make you a shop apprentice.
Yep.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had both shop apprentices and individual apprentices. Usually they'll favor one person, so it is a lot like parenting, whether the whole family raises them or like one individual and like you're a single parent.
Yeah.
So for me, I start with like if I'm going to apprentice someone, then I actually start with required reading because I believe that if you are going to be in this industry, there is a lot of mental work that needs to be done first.
I can feel a lot of people roll their eyes at that because for some reason the tattoo industry is full of people who don't believe in like, I don't know, self-help books or like self-growth, mental growth, emotional growth. And it is such a vital part in becoming a tattoo artist. Yeah. Sorry. Okay, continue.
No, you're good.
Reading.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's how you got introduced to Brene Brown.
Yeah, dude, and it saved my life. Like, not just in tattooing, but it definitely helped a lot with tattooing, but, like, it I don't know, it completely rewired my brain in a way that like I couldn't be more grateful for. So for any of you out there who just wants to, I don't know, rewire your brain in a good way and, you know, figure out how to live a more wholehearted life. I can't speak English. I'm really tired. Sorry, y'all. Read Brene Brown.
Yeah.
What did we start on? Power of Vulnerability?
The Gifts of Imperfection.
The Gifts of Imperfection.
Yeah, that's where I always start everyone.
Yes. Yep.
Which now I think I'll probably start them with the, what is it? Atlas of the Heart. Yeah. Brene Brown, Atlas of the Heart.
We're not sponsored, but we love you, Brene.
Yeah. Brene is a requirement for an apprenticeship.
It is. It is so important. Don't roll your eyes. I feel you. Don't do that. Give it a try.
Yeah. I mean, it could change your life.
Mm-hmm.
I also require Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Also, phenomenal book. That's how I started becoming pescatarian. This is... Just so y'all know, it really does apply to tattooing. I'm just throwing out this is just random shit that like...
so the way that it applies to tattooing is that it builds a better person. So I took that methodology of building better people from Ben Bergeron, who is a CrossFit coach, and he produced several like champions several years in a row for the CrossFit Games. And he talked about coaching as building a better person first. So making sure like it doesn't matter what the fucking lifts are if they cannot sustain the mental stress of what they're doing. And our job is a very mentally taxing job.
It is so demanding.
Yeah.
Every day.
That's why she's so fucking tired right now, because we just got off of work.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah. And so for me, it's the mental side of like working on like having compassion for yourself, having compassion for your clients, and being able to give space, because a lot of our job is that like it is therapist adjacent. So obviously we are not therapists, but people come to us with very vulnerable things. And you get to decide for what you want your career to be. If you just want to be someone that's doing tattoos and you don't develop any sort of relationship, then that's fine.
Yeah.
That's not how I work. That's not how I ideally want the entire industry to be. I personally would like our industry to have more emotional awareness around our clients, because we do sit with people and we're inflicting pain. So when you're with people in pain, they lash out in lots of different ways. And if you can give space for them and also help heal them in a lot of ways, I think that's really important. But most apprentices start fairly young, so they're not even done like developing in the sense that like they don't even have compassion for themselves.
I'm not even done developing, but it is very important to have compassion for yourself, especially when you're first starting out tattooing and you're an apprentice, because you're going to find yourself in the, what is it called? The rough, the
weeds.
The weeds. You're going to find yourself in the weeds a lot.
That's Brene Brown.
Yes. And in the weeds basically means that you are fucking overwhelmed.
Yep.
You are just surrounded by a lot. And it gets hard. There is a lot of like, there are so many points of my apprenticeship where I was like, dude, I need to prove to myself that I want this, because I don't even know right now. And so like to be able to give yourself compassion and move forward, again, it just builds a stronger, better human. They're all very important books. Even if you don't want to be a tattoo apprentice, we still recommend you read them.
Absolutely. I'll put actually the list of books in the link below. So I personally require that my artists work out, because I think that building mental fortitude happens in a gym and happens with physical exertion. And you also get to build bonds and connections, because there is a very weird power dynamic that happens between a mentor and apprentice. And I think that it's important for them to see their mentors as human beings. And when you get to work out with someone, you get to actually like see them as a human. So like she saw me working out, like sweating and hurting, as opposed to, I think for me, it's the quickest way to take you off that like tattoo artist pedestal and put you right back to being like, yo, we're suffering together. We're in this together.
Yeah. In my apprenticeship, I started to realize that like you and I had like really big like bonding moments when we were in the gym together, because there's something about like suffering the same way that the other person is, that like intrinsically there has to be some sort of DNA happening, some like, I don't know, from our ancestors back when like we were cave men and women and cave thems, that like when you suffer as a tribe, you get so close. And also working out, I can also feel some people roll their eyeballs. How does this have anything to do with tattooing? It is very important, because it also builds that level of like confidence. At least for me, it built so much confidence. And again, when I first started apprenticing, I was just in the rough of like mental illness, super depressed, very like anxious, but like it was because I was exacerbating it every day by like not taking care of myself, and like just it was a vicious cycle of like low self-esteem, but like I wouldn't do anything to like even help my self-esteem. You know what I mean? And when you go and you work out, I know it sounds fucking cliche, but you build this like trust with yourself and this love. Like you can't help but to like really be proud of yourself afterwards. And that's important. It is so important.
Yeah. Well, and it builds that mental fortitude, but it also builds an actual strong body. Because that's something that, like, isn't discussed kind of publicly. Like, within the industry, we all complain about our backs and our shoulders because we're in odd positions. And you, like, most tattoo artists I know have fucked up their back at some point or another. And that was why I got into fitness, was because I wanted to have longevity.
Yes.
I had watched a seminar with Dirk Morrison, and he was talking about having a pinched nerve in his hip from sitting with his belt cutting off circulation. And he had talked about like starting to do meditation for his mental health, but starting to exercise for his physical body, and how that had meant that he went from being able to physically tattoo for a couple hours a day, I think it was at like 3 or 4 hours a day, to then being able to tattoo for 8 hours a day because he had the strength in his muscles to sit in these weird fucking positions.
Yeah, it does protect your body because, again, I don't think a lot of people outside the industry know, but like you fuck your shit up. You fuck it up when you're tattooing.
It's the same with hairstylists, and I don't understand why it's not like more prevalent for them to also be exercising.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like working on building like strong back, so that way when you're in these, like when your arms are up all day,
Constantly.
your shoulders and your fucking back can support it, and you're not coming home being like, I'm all jacked up.
Yeah, and then having to take months off of work for like fucking your body up. And like we went to a seminar, and I also thought it was really funny, but I forgot his name. He was a really talented artist, and he was saying that he works out before he goes to work because then the hardest part of his day is done. And I thought that was fucking hilarious, because I was like, yeah, because at that point when you go into a tattoo, you're like, at least this tattoo isn't going to make me do 50 burpees.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I mean?
And in my case, like right now I'm in a phase where I work out at night because I'm like, here's the thing. I have that, like, at the end of the day, I know that that for me, working out is the best part of my day, that like the best part of my day is not over. So I have something to look forward to.
Yeah, which is awesome.
So it's like, like you have to figure out what works for you. And then the last thing that I believe, like in that mental preparation that I get them before they physically like start doing anything else, is the nutrition. And we go over why nutrition is important, which I'll keep it real short because I know we've gone on like quite a tangent.
No, it's our podcast.
Yeah, fuck it, it's our podcast.
Yeah.
But it's because of the whole like what nutrition does, for your body, for longevity, and also for your brain. Because if you're eating just garbage, then like where you were talking about being in that bad mental health, but you weren't eating fruits and veggies, you weren't eating anything that was fueling your body.
Yeah.
So when you're putting, let's be real clear, I'm not targeting like alcohol, sugar, anything like that. I fucking love them. There's literally a shot in my Starbucks right now. So like
I took a shot before we started.
I'm not coming for anyone.
Yeah.
But if you are never eating healthy foods, then you aren't getting the micronutrients you need to have the correct synapses fire. And so then while you're working and like while you're tattooing, while you're already slightly stressed because this is so scary and so intimidated, you don't have anything working for you. It's like pouring water in your fucking gas tank and getting mad that your car is not working. So for me, laying that baseline of creating a really solid human being allows me to take the steps forward, and it makes the rest of the apprenticeship so much easier because you're not dealing with all of this like, oh my God, I'm like, I'm hurting all the time. I don't have the stamina of my hands. I can't fucking practice for hours a day because my body's fucked. So for me, having that is that base level of creating a good human is the first most important thing.
Yep. That mental side, dude.
Yeah.
Huge. And the nutrition, again, I had a doctor be like, no wonder you're depressed. Because, like, I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating right. I was literally just not giving my body the fuel or, like, the exercise or the stimulation it needed to complete the stress cycle.
Yep.
Because, funny enough, if you stay in that stress cycle and you just stay in this constant state of anxiety, you're never going to get out of it because you're not completing it, because you're not doing anything to help yourself. So, help yourself. And you'll find that you'll go so much farther in any career, really. Tattooing. But now onto the technical.
Yeah, the technical stuff.
Yeah, nitty gritty.
So while they are doing this part, then they can start the observation. I typically stick with about 100 hours of observation time because I think that there is so much to be learned just watching. And they ask questions, and it's great for you as like a mentor to remind you of like, oh yeah, I should explain this and I should explain that. But there's just, all they're doing is fucking watching. Sit, watch. And I get that it gets boring for them, but also fuck you, bro. It's going to get boring while you're tattooing. Build that mental resilience of fucking sitting here and watching. Because let's be real clear, for anyone who is a tattoo artist that's listening to this, solid fill for an entire 7-hour session, not really mentally stimulating. And so watching me do solid fill is probably more mentally stimulating for you as like a new apprentice. Because at least then you're like, oh, how are they doing that? That's so interesting. So at least 100 hours of solid observation time. And then from there, because at that point they've watched you set up probably, I don't know, 25, 30 times. And you start then explaining your setup, why you are laying out the items you're laying out, why you're placing them in the specific positions, and also the order. So that way you can go over cleanliness and go over like what sterile packaging is versus clean packaging. So that's when you get into the setup. Once you've taught them the setup, once they start doing your setup, which is a whole fucking thing in and of itself. You get to have some fun punishments in there too that I highly recommend. I don't believe in tattoo hazing in the traditional sense of just hazing to be a fucking asshole. However, I did because she left an ink bottle open, and ink is very expensive.
Very.
And it's really easy when you're like new and you're like learning to not remember to close stuff. So her punishment was...
we were doing the Drawcember thing. So basically Drawcember is draw one piece of flash for every day of December, and there's a prompt for every single day. And by the way, completing one piece of like fully rendered flash is like it's time consuming, you know, like it takes time, it takes effort. So because I, left one of her ink bottles open and like it dried, and again, ink's expensive, so that ink is like gone to waste now because it's dried. She had me, instead of doing one piece of flash, do 2 pieces of flash. But like the thing is like I'll say it, I fucking hate sloths. Fuck sloths, never like them.
Hot take, she hates sloths.
Hot take, don't think they're cute. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into that. But it was one of the regular versions, and then I had to draw the sloth version of said prompt. Yep. So that was my punishment, my tattoo hazing in air quotes.
Speaking of which, side note to tattoo artists, don't ask your apprentice to do anything you're not fucking doing. Every time I had her do flash assignments, I also did flash assignments. Because if you're just arbitrarily assigning shit and not putting in the same amount of effort, I get it that I have a career on top of that, and I'm also like drawing for tattoos. Yeah. You're a fucking asshole. And it builds once again that connection of me doing Drawcember with her. And I didn't do the sloth assignment, but I did do a naughty and nice version. So when I said, hey, you're going to draw 2 things, I also went ahead and drew 2 things because I understood the amount of time she was doing, and it helps build that connection of like, hey, right now there is a power dynamic because I am your teacher, you are my student. However, we will be equal, because that's what your goal should always be. Otherwise, why the fuck are you teaching this person?
God, you had someone scoff at you when you said that. You're like, my goal is to make sure that she is as good of an artist as me, if not better, by the time she's done. And someone literally scoffed at you. And here I am, motherfucker.
Yeah, anyways. Better than me.
No.
I'm chasing her every day, y'all. She's killing me.
It's fun. We're having this like back and forth.
Okay, so then, we do the drawings and we do setup. And then at that point, you're also doing this client interaction. So like this person's literally just following you around. It's like having a fucking shadow. And some days I sent her home just because I was like, dude, I need some fucking personal space. That's totally normal. If you are currently a tattoo artist who has an apprentice and you're like, oh my God, I just need like 5 minutes from them, they also need 5 minutes from you. Take some time away from each other if you need to. Yeah. We were really good at communicating that, just because like we spent so much time together that we did communicate like, okay, you're good, you're tired, I'm tired, go home.
And or fine. Like, I would just like be like, oh, okay, if you don't need me, I'm gonna fuck off and like, I don't know, make paper towels. Yeah.
Do all the menial tasks that like help give me the time and energy to be able to teach. Yeah. And so then there's like lots of observation of watching me do do the consultations, because that is a whole art, and I could honestly do an entire episode just on consultations and like the nuances of that. Yeah. And like the importance of like doing a good thorough consultation and like the legality of informed consent. And from there, once we're done with all of this, like watching, now the watching still continues through this, and so does like the setup, because ideally they're going to set you up through the rest of their apprenticeship, because you want to get that repetition of hours. You want to make sure that they can set up a tattoo like station without thinking about it, because from our perspective as teachers, we want to make sure that we set them up so that way when they start tattooing, they aren't thinking about it. This is muscle memory, because they're already going to be fucking super nervous. And granted, when they go to start tattooing, they're going to fuck up their setup, but you want to set them up with as much of like confidence, because when a client's watching them and they're already like, this person's judging me and I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, the more repetitions they have doing it, the more comfortable they feel. So that way they're like, cool, I know exactly what I'm doing.
Muscle memory.
Yeah, you want it just to be muscle memory. So you want lots of repetitions of like setups and teardowns.
Yep.
And that way they're not freaking out on that side of it.
Yeah, and that requires a lot of patience on your end, because like I can't tell you how many times I've fucked up your setup, and like I've had my setup fucked up where I'm like, bro, it's not that hard. And then I'm like, okay, take a breath. You've done this before. You've fucked up other people's like setups before. It is difficult because everyone's setup is extremely different. It's like a coffee order, you know?
Yeah.
So
it's not easy. And then from there starts the tattooing. Because like now I learned on pigskin because that was all that was available. Mm-hmm. Now there's lots of like fake skin. Mm-hmm. So we just ordered fake skin. Yep. And at that point, usually they'll just be using your machine, but that is a good point for them to then invest in their own tattoo machine, because then they get to bond with it. It's just like a car, you know, you might learn on someone else's, but if you have your own, you're going to do better off anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was just random noise from the computer. So from there, they start on lines, and this is just like how we teach little kids to like write. So we have lines, and they're just going to trace lines, just straight lines.
Just straight lines.
Straight lines. No fucking letters. Like this drives me nuts every time I see these like little like apprentices, and I say that in quotation marks because it's usually some kid that's watched for like half a month and then has a fucking tattoo machine. So none of these like doing designs, you need to work on the actual skill of being able to pull a line for multiple inches. Mm-hmm. Because when you are tattooing, the likelihood that you're just going to pull like tiny little sections at one time is slim to none. You're going to have so many designs over your career where you have to pull a 6 to 7 inch line. Oh my God. You may as well get used to it now.
Yeah,
and like get really good at it earlier on, because then once you have the basis of good line work, everything else can build from there. Mm-hmm. So we did lines, we did squares, because matching up points is actually quite hard. We did circles, because doing perfect circles is incredibly hard, which is why I think it's hilarious that every client's like, I could be a tattoo artist, I could do a stick man. And a stick man is probably the most difficult thing you could do, because it is perfectly straight lines and a perfect circle. Mm-hmm. So then we do circles, squares, triangles, and it's just a whole sheet of those, or as many sheets as they need to get good at it. Yeah. Then from there, we start practicing solid fill. Mm-hmm. So we take those shapes and we start coloring them in solid.
Which also, fun fact, incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
I struggled the most with solid fill, I think. That was like such a hard lesson. But it's so fucking important. If you want good saturation, dude, you gotta fucking figure it out.
Yeah.
You gotta figure it out somehow.
Saturation is very important, and also knowing to not overwork the skin. Mm-hmm. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, that's when you have run your tattoo machine over an area entirely too many times. So if you've had some like really gnarly ass scabbing, mm-hmm. more than likely your artist overworked it.
Yep.
That could be on you on healing, but more than likely that's where you're at.
Yep.
And then from there, we practice with those same shapes. We practice gradients and shading. Mm-hmm. So we're just blending. We're learning that. And we go from that point to then being able to pair your line work with solid fill. So then they get to do the line work and the solid fill, and then they get to do line work and gradation, which at that point means we're ready to start actually doing designs. Mm-hmm. So it's an entire section of just like these sheets that look, look super boring. We're playing footsie under the table apparently right now. And so it's just super basic stuff. And then you get to start having fun with art, and not until you learn the basics.
No.
And it's just the same way that we teach kids how to write. We teach them by tracing and getting good at each element, and then you can start writing out sentences.
Yeah, dude, you gotta be able to, like, I don't know, write neatly before you pull out a whole 5-page essay.
Exactly.
You know, like, you don't get to have fun yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's all very, like you said, the basics, and, like, the basics are the boring part, but this is, like, where it all comes together.
Yeah.
This is, like, all the, I can testify that, like, I don't know, I came out of my apprenticeship, like, pretty good, because I was like, holy shit, like, all of those tiny little lessons, if you take and, like, I don't know, really exercise them and really utilize them and really pay attention to all the small things, all the boring stuff, it's just like lifting.
Yeah.
It's all the boring ass fucking stuff before you make the damn lift that, like, really makes it all come together. So.
Well, then it means that, like, if you can't tattoo something, it's just because something else, because you have your fundamentals. So if you no longer look at pieces and go, man, this is terrifying, because then you're like, well, I know how to do good clean lines, and you just check that off the box and you say, okay, I just need to do good clean lines here. I know how to do solid fill, and you just knock through your solid fill, and you're like, I know how to do smooth blends. And so you can break down these pieces that seem to, like, you know, the average person as an incredibly complex piece, but you just break it down by its lines, its solid fill, and it's shading, and that's it. So then from there, you're able to, like, tackle any piece. And then my last thing here is that then you basically start that whole process over again on the skin. So when she started tattooing on the skin, I did her lines.
Yeah.
And it's much like when you're teaching kids how to draw on, like, on paper, how they work on coloring books first when they're kids. So I did her lines, she practiced solid fill, and she would do the occasional little line. And then once she got her solid fill down, then I did her lines, she practiced shading. And then from there, she said, okay, I can do lines, and then pair them with solid fill, because when you pair them with solid fill, you're able to fix any lines. So it's just a solid design, and if the line isn't perfect, that's okay. Your solid fill can help fix that.
Yeah.
And then it's lines and shading, which means that bitch is a full-ass tattoo artist.
Boom.
And, like, that really, like, that kind of, like, methodology allows you as a mentor to not have to necessarily worry about, like, I think I touched up, like, one maybe 2 pieces for her in her entire apprenticeship, because she just didn't need it. And, like, she herself touched up very few pieces because they healed fine, because she understood all the basics of it. And I think that's what, like, artists are missing, is they jump ahead and say, here's a fucking drawing, do it.
Yeah. Because it's all those little things that come together. And I'm just gonna say real quick, all these, again, boring tattoos that you're gonna do, because none of them were, like, cool. And I shouldn't say cool, but, like, you know, like, for me, what I could draw. Yeah. I could draw so much better than I could tattoo. And that's how it's supposed to be when you first start out. You have to dumb your designs down like crazy, like insanely, in order, because again, these basics are where it all comes together. Yeah. And it took me, like, I shouldn't say so long, but it takes a while for you to get to a point where you're good at tattooing enough to, like, compare with your actual art skills. It is the weirdest thing. It is the weirdest thing.
Just like with lifting, if you learn those fundamentals, even though it takes time in the beginning, then that means that, like, you're not looking at your artwork being like, fuck, I can't tattoo that. Yeah. Because you know you've got all the basics down, so now you can just tattoo. So you don't look at any piece and you're not intimidated. Whereas, like, we've worked with artists who cannot tattoo outside of a very small, like, area. So, like, they specialize, and I say that in quotations because I personally don't think it's specializing when you're not capable of doing other things.
Yeah, it's different if you're, like, trying to aim your career in a different direction and, like, just, like, you know, emphasizing certain styles versus you're saying you're specializing it because it's the only thing you can do.
Yeah, and I think that, like, choosing a style based off of, like, what you prefer versus based off of not being able to do other things is a huge difference. And for me, if you're going to apprentice someone, the goal is that they should be able to tattoo better than you. That's always your goal. It's just like if you're raising kids, you want them to be more successful. You want them to do better than you. And it's the same with, like, why would you not set them up for success? Like, you're kind of a dick if you're like, meh, I don't care. Yeah. And then my very last note on this is that your apprenticeship does not end, like, for the mentor, your apprenticeship with this person does not end the moment they, like, graduate. Like, when she got signed off as an apprentice when she was like, nope, full-fledged artist. I wasn't like, all right, bitch, you're on your own. Fuck off. No.
Don't ask me any more questions.
Yeah.
I literally asked her a question today. It was hilarious. I was tattooing my cousin and I showed her this design. I was like, Gaia, what do you think of this? Should I like, I'm thinking I'm just not going to tattoo the border, but like, it's hard because it's not lining up. Like, give me your, like, I always, you know, go up to her and I'm like, give me your professional opinion while my client is standing right there. And my client's just like, oh shit, okay. We're getting a second opinion. And they love it, by the way. They love it. And then Gaia gave me this face like, do you want me to be like, what did you say? You're like, do you want me to be honest?
Yeah.
And I was like,
It was
yeah.
not an easy question.
I was like, yeah, please be, I asked you this question, please be honest. And I was worried for a second that she was going to say, you should probably redesign the whole thing. And she's like, it needs to be bigger. I'm like, oh, dang it. I knew it. Because I sized it down again. And she's like, no, I mean like, it was a forearm piece turned into a whole sleeve.
And it looks so good.
It does.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky. I'm so happy I came up to you with that question. And I'm also really happy my cousin was down. So shout out Gaston. Thanks for getting a whole sleeve today.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yep. It was just meant to be a huge design and it fits perfectly and the design is great.
It's pretty damn dope. It's a portfolio piece for sure. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, you don't stop being a mentor.
No, it's just like being a parent. Just because they left the house does not mean you are not their parent anymore. So I think that that's something that artists need to consider when taking on apprenticeships and like taking on anyone as an apprentice is that this is a lifetime obligation.
Yeah.
Not just the legal side of like you taught this person, so you're kind of attached to them on that side because if they fucking fuck someone up, that could, depending on which state you are in, if there's legislation on that, then that can come right back to you. But on the fact that like you are responsible for bringing this person into this industry, so therefore you don't quit when they graduate. And if you do, that's fine. That's on you. That's your parenting style. If you're the type of dad that's just, or the mom, or the fucking parent, whatever, that says, hey, you turned 18, fuck off, I don't care. That's your choice. That's not my personal belief structure.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky that I can, like, you know, ring her up. And by ring her up, I mean go over to the next booth. Mom, what do I use to clean the tub? It's very much that situation. I'm like, I need an opinion. Please help. And I do it all the time. It's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah. Damn, that was a good episode. I think we covered a lot.
Yeah. Once again, if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to reach out. We're going to, hopefully next time we'll dig into a couple more questions and then we'll probably just change subjects. So
yeah, I mean,
I don't know what we're going to talk about next week.
It's our podcast.
We'll see.
Who cares?
Yeah.
But thanks for tuning in, guys.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.